Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the back doors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Hello there, everybody. This is Jay, bringing you the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We got some really cool stuff to cover this episode, so let's just jump right into it. So, there was a film that came out about, I want to say, a year or two ago now, that it was an animated film. And, you know, I'm lucky I get to see a lot of animated films. And, you know, sometimes they do happen to blend together. It's just what happens. You know, sometimes they have good concepts, good ideas, good casts, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good movie. I've seen movies where this is not true. And I've seen other movies where this is absolutely true. It has everything going right for it, everything that, you know, possibly could make it good, and just, for whatever reason, it's just not good. It's just kind of the way it went, you know, sad but true. It's just how it went. So, there was a film that came out a few years ago called The Secret Life of Pets. And I'll admit, the trailers looked good at the time, you know, the teasers and the trailers. And I was like, you know, it has potential to be a good film, but I still had my doubts because, like I said, I've seen a handful of films like this. I believe it was done by Illumination Entertainment, I believe, did it. You know, and around that time they did other films, like they did Sing, you know, and there were a couple of films that came out around that time. So I go and see this film in theaters, and I have to say I was actually pretty impressed by it. Had a really good cast, had a really cool storyline. It basically showed, you know, how animals kind of like live when their, you know, owners all go off to work or some of that. They have their own little world, their own little mannerisms and things they do. And they had friends, you know, they had, you know, they went on adventures and did all this really cool stuff. And basically what happens is Max, you know, is living with his, you know, owner by himself. And one day, you know, she gets a new dog called Duke. And the two butt heads through most of the film because, you know, like Duke is like, well, I mean, Max is like, wait a minute, this is my home. You know, I've kind of been here, and Duke, it seems like Duke is taking over, right? So the film is the two of them going around together, and, you know, and like Max is trying to take Duke back to his owner, and as the film goes along, you know, a bunch of different stuff happens. There's a lot of really cool visually stimulating scenes. There's some really funny twists along the way, and it was a really good film, and it did pretty well in theaters. So it wasn't a big shock to me. I'm like, hey, they're doing a sequel. I'm like, yeah, I can see that. It made sense, you know, like it was one of those animated films that wasn't just for kids. I think, you know, fans of all ages could enjoy it. If you'd ever had a pet before, I think you'd definitely enjoy it. So, yeah, so it was announced that, hey, we're going to do a Secret Life of Pets 2, and it didn't take a superbly long amount of time for them to do that. But at that time, all we knew was, hey, they're doing a sequel. Great. That's all we knew. Well, this last week, that changed. We got our first little teaser for Secret Life of Pets 2. And let me try to do my best to break this teaser down for you. So we see Max with his owner. She puts a leash on him, and he's all excited, thinking, oh, great, we get to go for a walk. This is going to be really awesome. This is going to be really fun. I'm really jazzed and looking forward to this. And he gets in the car with her and expects this, you know, great fun thing to happen, you know, and instead she takes him to the vet. And he's freaking out, you know, because usually animals aren't like, oh boy, the vet, this is going to be so much fun. So we get to see in this little first kind of teaser here, we get to see Max, we get to see some other dogs, we get to see some other cats, we get to see some other animals with their own mannerisms and, you know, different quirks. And, you know, it's not really a big teaser. I mean, it's only about maybe a minute and a half. You know, there isn't a whole lot to see there, but And it doesn't even really tell us anything about the sequel. It really doesn't. Towards the end, we get to see the cat again and another cat, and we get to see a lot of new characters in this. Really, I don't think we see too many familiar faces. So, yeah, so it's one of those, teasers where it's like, hey, you get a little bit of a glimpse into the film, probably one of the scenes from the film, but that's it. That's all we see. But I will admit, though, even though it's just a teaser and it really doesn't show me much of anything about the film, I did enjoy the teaser. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really kind of cool. It was kind of nifty. It was kind of fun. And it was cool to see Max again and a lot of new characters getting introduced. That was really, really awesome, I thought. I really enjoyed that. And it was nice to get our first little glimpse of this movie. And like I said, as many teasers go, and I've said on past episodes, it just gives you a very little glimpse. You don't get to see, okay, the plot of the film is this. No, you don't see that. Or what's the antagonist this time? We don't see that either. Or who's the bad guy? We don't see that. So we really leave watching this teaser not really knowing much of anything about the film itself, except, it does what some teasers are supposed to do. It gets you a little excited for the film, and it definitely did that for me. It really did. After watching this teaser, all right, cool. I'm excited. I mean, I want to know more, but I'm definitely it satiated my, thirst for a bit of knowledge for this film for now. It does give a tentative time period when it's going to come out. It says summer 2019. So we know that. We don't know when in the summer. It could be June. It could be July. Heck, it could be August. I don't know. We don't know. And it does give us some it gives us some little tease there where it says, hey, look out for more character trailers, in the future. So that means we may get, trailers for other characters like Duke and some of the other characters. So we may get that in the coming weeks or months. So that's really cool. And I'm excited for this film. I mean, usually this company knows what they're doing, and they proved, they knew what they were doing with this film, because it was one of those animated films, kind of those rare ones that come along where it's every now and again where it's like, let's take a chance. Let's take a risk here. Let's try something new. Let's try something a little different and see how it goes. And I think it went really well. I think it was a really fun film. It was a great film. And I'm looking forward to seeing this film. Like I said, it doesn't tell us too much. Just gives us a very itty-bitty little nugget. But it's a good start for this film. It is. And if you were a fan of the first film, I definitely, recommend checking this out. And you'll get to see, a little bit of about, what the film is about. And, well, not what it's about. Sorry about that. But you will get a little glimpse. And it'd be nice to see Max again in a new situation. And like I said, he's basically, not exactly too excited to be there because his owner tricks him to take him there. And the characters he meets are kind of zany and crazy and not usually people he'd normally hang out with. And what they say in this teaser doesn't really calm him down too much or give him too much hope that, everything's going to be okay. It's no big deal. No. If anything, some of these these characters just kind of make them a bit more uneasy. There's a cat especially in this that says some things you can just tell Max just like, oh my god, I'm going to die. It's really nuts. So like I said, if you enjoyed the first film or your kids enjoyed the first film, I definitely say check this teaser out. It's on YouTube now, and keep an eye out for future teasers coming out in the near future. And as those teasers come out, I will be sure to bring them to future episodes for this podcast. Like I said, though, I'd like to know more. And I'm not always a patient person with these kinds of things. I'm just not. I try to be, but I'm sorry, I'm not a pro at it. It's just the way it is, But, I think that it'll be worth it because... like I said, the first film was good, and they did this for a number of films around the same time. They announced pretty quickly there's going to be a Sing 2. They announced there's going to be a Trolls 2. There's going to be, like I said, a sequel to Secret Life of Pets, and I think there's even been rumblings about a Lego Batman sequel, but I don't know if that's actually been officially announced yet. I'm not sure about that one. But there are a number of sequels coming out in the next coming years, about some of these different films. And like I said, they all came around the similar time. Trolls, Sing, Secret Life of Pets, they were all around the same time. Like in that, around that same year, I think. So that's all I have to say about that at this point. And we're going to take ourselves a short little break, and we'll be back in a moment with some more sci-fi news.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hello there, everybody. This is Jay, and we're back with some more sci-fi news. So, it's November. November has begun, and what does November usually mean? Holiday films, holiday specials, they're going to be like some made-for-TV holiday movies, some direct-to-DVD holiday movies, Netflix and some of the networks are going to do their own holiday movies. It's just something that usually happens. Like a year or two ago, they did The Man Who Invented Christmas. That came out like around November. I talked about last episode, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, which is a holiday film of sorts. So it's that time of year. There's going to start being more and more holiday stuff coming out as it gets closer to the holiday in like December. Like ABC and some of their networks do like the 25 Days of Christmas, which is like, a Christmas movie every night, Christmas specials, a lot of the Rankin and Bass stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that comes out, that's just the way it is. And a lot of these different like companies and networks want to crank out Christmas stuff. That's what they want to do. And I want to say I might have talked about it on here before, but there actually is a chance I may not have. So a while ago, I want to say a number of months ago, we got shown a first teaser. Well, first of all, it got announced that, they're doing another Grinch movie, another remake of The Grinch. For those that aren't aware, they did the original animated movie with Boris Karloff voicing the Grinch and narrating. And that one for a long time was the only one. There was no Grinch anything. In 2000, which I didn't actually know this until recently, that's when it came out. It doesn't seem like it's been that long to me, but I digress. They did a live-action Grinch where Ron Howard did it, directed it. Jim Carrey was the Grinch in it. In a lot of ways, it kind of expanded on the story and kind of filled in gaps that we really didn't get in the book or in the animated film that, we had many, many years ago. And some people were mixed about it. I personally really enjoyed it. I thought, Jim Carrey did a great job. The cast did a really great job. It had a good soundtrack, and it was a different, fun film. And as I was watching the teasers for this new Grinch and the trailers, where Benedict Cumberbatch this time voices the Grinch, turns out Kenan Thompson is in it as like a neighbor of the Grinch, and then the girl from Murder, She Wrote, her name's on the tip of my tongue. It's she voices the mayor, who's only in it for a little bit. So, anyways, so this film I was iffy about. I had my doubts. I'm like, you know what? It could be good, or it could be really bad. There's no in between. And I was able to see this movie this week. And, I'm going to bring it to you. Everything about this film. I do warn you, there may be some spoilers in here. I'm going to try to keep it as spoiler-free as I can. But at the same time, I'm going to, this is going to be kind of a, just true review. It's what it's going to be. So, Anyway, so this movie, like I said, has Benedict Cumberbatch as the Grinch. It's computer animated. It's done by Illumination Entertainment, the same company that's done, the first 3 Despicable Me movies. It did Minions, which really, in my opinion, were all actually really good movies, by the way. I had my doubts about Minions, too, and I left going, all right, Minions, they did a very good job. So I thought, that going, you know what? I don't think it's going to be bad. I just didn't think so. So anyways, I go and see this movie, which, by the way, is only like an hour, 40 minutes long. It's not really a long movie. The live-action version that Ron Howard directed was, I think, closer to 2 hours. And I'm just going to go and say it. This movie is terrible. It is a really, really, really bad film. It's just, man, I was just like in shock how bad it was. This is one of those movies where it reminded me a lot of Transformers The Last Night and Super Troopers 2, just in the sense where even if you thought, well, it may not be a good movie, I don't think I ever could have imagined it would have been this bad of a movie. And I'm going to get into a couple reasons why this film is bad. So first of all, Pharrell Williams narrates it this time, and I think he tries to do a sort of poppy rap version of, You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, but it's not really in there that much, nor is it that strong. So that scene itself is kind of cut out. And I just don't think he was a good choice for narrating this. I mean, he's not, he's talented. He's done some good stuff, I'll admit that, but it was just kind of an odd choice, so that's the first issue I have with it. The second real big issue I have with it, and I'm not blaming, the actor for this, but Benedict Cumberbatch's Grinch just didn't really come off as the Grinch. It just didn't, It was like, it wasn't that mean. It wasn't that grumpy. There were parts where he was actually nice. I was like, man, I don't remember the Grinch ever doing that, really doing that, until toward the end of the film. So there were parts where he was nice. I'm like, that's just not the character of the Grinch. At least not the character I've ever seen. I've never seen the Grinch like that. But my biggest problem, my biggest issue with this film has to be it doesn't really follow the story. It just doesn't like Hollywood, it's okay to take artistic license, and it's okay to veer from stories and adapt stories. That's totally all right. What's not okay is when you try to do that and you just kind of, either pass over the story entirely or the, core of the story is lost. In the live action one, yeah, there's artistic license taken and, liberties taken, but at the core, it's still the same Grinch story. This, on the other hand, it just isn't. It really isn't. It's just not the Grinch story. It actually drags on at parts. It's weak at parts. And it just takes some weird liberties and twists and turns that don't really make sense, aren't really that strong. And towards the end, it almost feels like the final moment, where, and this isn't really a spoiler because you've seen previous versions of the Grinch, either the animated or the live action. There's a part where, the Grinch dresses up as Santa Claus, goes to Whoville, and pretty much just takes everything Christmassy from all the houses. That's what he does. That part in this film is rushed. It's a completely rushed scene. Just like, okay, we're running out of time here. We got to finish. Where it shouldn't be rushed because it's such a big, important moment in the film, right? It just is. And like I said, there isn't really even a, You're Mean One, Mr. Grinch. Not really. It's not in the film, which I thought was a bummer because in the animated film, that's, a really important part where, Boris Karloff sings it is really, really cool. It's a great moment. And the Jim Carrey live action version, it's not a moment glossed over. It's like, hey, we see the Grinch, doing what he's doing and we hear the whole, song, but they did that in that version more of where he is, while he's kind of making the, sled is when we get to hear it, but still we get to hear it. It's a little different. It's got some new twists and turns in it, but it's still it's there. Like I said, in this film, it's not in there at all. And I was just thoroughly disappointed in this movie. I think what happened here was the, writers and director just took too many liberties trying to make a new version of the story when really, in reality, no one really asked for another Grinch in the first place. What kind of baffled me about this was, there's 2 other Grinch stories you could do here instead of this one. There's Halloween, it's Grinch Night. and there's the Grinch, the Cat in the Hat. Those are two Grinch stories that have not ever been done ever, as far as I know. The only thing they ever did with those was they did animated films of both of them, and that's it. They haven't done theater quality films. They did movie no kind of company has done that. So this was a film that nobody really asked for. The visuals, I'll admit, do look kind of cool, and I think certain age groups of kids will enjoy this because when I was watching it, they did. But that's it. Anybody else, if you know the story or you've seen the previous versions, I would recommend just avoiding this movie entirely. Don't go to see it. Don't go to pay to see it. Because it was just like, man, this was just one of those films. It was probably one of the worst, holiday films I've seen in a while. And I've seen in the past years a few that weren't that great and didn't really stand out that much. But this one really takes the cake. So I hope that Illumination Entertainment bounces back from this, because it's definitely their worst film I think I've ever seen, which, they've done a lot of good stuff, so it's kind of surprising. And I just hope that, they learn from this and, take, maybe, I don't know if it was rushed or what happened, but maybe in future take your time with something like this. And like I said, if you really, are itching, different studios to do a Grinch movie, you have two others to choose from besides this one. This one, I would say just lay off for a while. That's what I would say. That's what I would recommend. Just avoid it. Do something else. That's just my recommendation. So, that was my, kind of harsh views on that film, but I'm sorry if the film's bad. I'm going to say it's bad. It's just the way I am. It's the kind of, person I am. So we're going to take ourselves another short little break, and then we're going to be back with some more sci-fi news.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello there, everybody. This is Jay, back with some more sci-fi news. So, it's been about a year or two now where, Disney, first of all, it was originally on Disney XD, and now it's on Disney Channel, and it was announced, I want to say about 1 or 2 years ago now, that, we're going to bring back Ducktales. And I watched the 80s Ducktales. I didn't watch every episode, but I've watched at least the first 2 seasons. It's a really good show. It's a really iconic show. It's got a very iconic theme song. Ducktales, woo! It's great theme song. Did a lot of really cool stories. The family went on a lot of really exciting adventures. And like almost 20, 30 years later, people really still like this show. They really watch this show. And like many fans, I was just like, I don't really think we should do another DuckTales. I just don't think we should. I don't see a reason to do another DuckTales. Let's put it that way. I don't see a reason to do it. I'm like, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's a good idea. Now, I will give Disney some credit. When they announced how they announced the cast list was actually pretty clever. It was around last year. They did a YouTube video where they showed the new cast singing the theme song of the old cast, individually. And, we got to see like David Tennant's going to be Scrooge, and just like, a lot of different cast members are going to play the different characters. And, and when I was at D23 last year, I got to talk to some of the cast, really nice people, really cool people. And I had gotten to watch the first episode, and I've actually really been following the show ever since. And I'll say, it is a little different. It is different. It's not every single week they're going on adventure to find some treasure. That's not always where they're going. when I met the two like people who helped create it, like they had said they're kind of focusing more on family, and that is true. It is true. That is what they're doing. And at the same time, it's done some cool stuff. You get to see like different sides of these characters. Like Mrs. Beakley, you get to see, there was an episode last season where you get to see she was a spy at one time. There was a big mystery last season of Huey. Webby and one of the boys trying to find, their mom. He was trying to find his mom. That was really, really kind of cool, and had a really interesting cliffhanger last season. How it ended was really, really cool. Magica actually came back last season toward the end, and Lena, who we had seen forever, has kind of disappeared, but kind of not really. I won't spoil it for you there. But so, in the end, it's been a pretty good show so far. It really has. I've enjoyed it. I'm like, this is actually kind of a cool show. I like it. So, anyways, Season 2 has just begun. We've had the first few episodes, and I'm here to talk to you about one of the more recent ones that just aired about 2 weeks ago now, maybe even almost closer to 3 weeks ago, is The Depths of Cousin Fethry. So this is an episode where I believe it's, I want to say Huey and Dewey, but let me double check that because don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say it was Huey and Dewey, hear this weird call in a can. Yeah, it is Huey and Dewey. Okay, so it is Huey and Dewey. They hear this weird call in a little tin can from someone named Cousin Fethry, who they've never met before. Now, Donald Duck and Scrooge are like, ignore it. You don't want to talk to them. You don't want to have anything to do with them. It just always ends really bad. But Huey is kind of bored out of his mind, or Dewey is, and says like, I want to do something. I want to go on adventures. Something. I'm just kind of sitting at home bored out of my skull, right? And so he decides, let's just go do it. And they meet Cousin Fethry, who takes them to Scrooge's deep sea laboratory. And Dewey kind of thinks that he's kind of weird and out there. But Huey thinks he's really kind of cool. Huey can actually kind of relate to him because, he's kind of a little odd genius too. And we get to see, where at first Huey really idolizes Cousin Fethry because he's like, hey, you know what? He's really cool. He's really awesome. He's just like me. This is great. But as the episode progresses, he finds out, hey, you know what? He's not who I thought he was. He's not all cracked up to be. And there's a strange strange monster that's kind of attacking them that has a kind of interesting twist at the end. So, and it wasn't a bad episode. It was different, but it does have adventure. It does have, mystery and wonder. And Cousin Fethry, like I said, I don't think we ever had met before. And I actually don't know if Cousin Fethry had ever been in any Disney anything before. I don't think so. Mind you, I'm not sure, but so this was kind of one of those characters that had kind of existed in the universe, but we'd never really seen before, and this show does that. It goes, hey, here's a new character, one that you may have heard of before, maybe in the comics or something like that, but you've never seen in the cartoon. And it does. He takes, Huey and Dewey on an interesting little adventure. Meanwhile, which sadly we don't see, I kind of wish we did, is Launchpad, helps them steal the sub to go there against Uncle Scrooge's and wishes. And I guess what we don't see off camera is Launchpad goes on this whole adventure with like a mermaid or something. So we don't get to see that. I kind of wish we did, but overall, it's a good episode. I can't say it's one of the best episodes they've ever done, or that it's, one of those episodes that's really going to stand out really, really big per se. Or if it even has, as far as I can tell, much to go on with the story they're doing this season. But it was a fun episode. I enjoyed it, and This is one of those shows where when I first started watching it, I was like, it's good, but it didn't really blow me away at first. But I will admit it is starting to grow on me. It is, and they definitely did a different thing with the Beagle Boys last season. Magica was very, very different. Because, like I said, she got introduced toward the end of the season. Glomgold is very different. And there's kind of been one or two surprise villains along the way. And also when we got to see Gizmo Duck last season, that was very different. That was a really good part of last season where Lin-Manuel Miranda voiced, Gizmo Duck and his alter ego this time. So if you were a fan of the original, I would say check this one out. Like I said, it's not the same, but in a weird way, that's not a bad thing, I don't think. Webby is very different. Mrs. Beakley is very different. Launchpad is almost kind of like a surfer dude, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It kind of works in a strange way. And I would say give it a shot because, like I said, for me, I really like it. I do enjoy it, and I think it's doing pretty well. And the show itself is doing very, very well. It got picked up for its first 2 seasons before the pilot even aired. And before the second season aired, it's already been picked up for a 3rd season. And I will say David Tennant does an amazing job as Uncle Scrooge. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool show, and I like it so far, and I'm very interested to see where it goes next. So that is sadly all the time we have for this episode. I hope you learned some really cool things and had a lot of fun like I did, bringing all this great stuff to you. And don't worry, we'll be back real soon with more sci-fi news.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.